and a lot of hard work from a lot of folks. As you all know, over the past couple of weeks, I and the people across the state of Louisiana, in fact, people across the country, have been deeply troubled by the disturbing string of church fires here in St. Landry Parish and also one in Caddo Parish. And it has been especially painful because it reminds us of a very dark past of intimidation and fear. That is why this morning I'm glad that we're able to come together and to announce that an arrest has been made in connection with the fires that burned the 3 historically African-American churches here in St. Landry Parish over a 10-day span. The suspect who was arrested is Holden Matthews, a 21-year-old white male from here in St. Landry Parish. At this point, though, I do want to point out that we have no reason to believe that the 3 fires here in St. Landry Parish are related to the fire in Caddo Parish at the Vivian United Pentecostal Church. In a few moments, State Fire Marshal Butch and representatives from all the law enforcement agencies involved in making this arrest happen and who are actively investigating still are going to brief you on the details that they are able to share. But first, I want to commend Chief Browning and all of the folks at the State Fire Marshal's office, along with investigators from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the FBI, the Louisiana State Police, the St. Landry Parish Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Bobby Guidros, and everyone who came together for their expert and professional investigation of this case, along with the Florida State Fire Marshal's Office. And I'm going to stop and just for a moment express my very sincere appreciation to them, because you can expect that all the other agencies would be involved in an investigation of this type. But the assistance we received from Florida is extraordinary. We really appreciate it. It was very helpful. They sent 2 strike teams. I think it was 7 investigators over, and they were very, very helpful in undertaking this investigation. Everyone has been working around the clock to get to the bottom of these fires just as swiftly as possible and identify and apprehend the perpetrator. I also want to acknowledge the pastors and parishioners of St. Mary, led by the Reverend Kyle Sylvester, of Greater Union, led by Reverend Harry Richard, and of Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, led by Reverend Gerald Toussaint. And all of you and your members have shown incredible grace and faith in the midst of this painful and tragic loss that they've each suffered. Now, I said it Monday in the State of the State address at the legislature. Nobody should ever fear for safety in their house of worship or fear that their church will be destroyed. I don't know what this young man's motive was. I don't know what was in his heart, but I can say it cannot be justified or rationalized. These were evil acts. But let me be clear about this. Hate is not a Louisiana value. And violence has no place in our communities. We are better than this, yes. And this is a reflection of one depraved individual. It is not a reflection on the state of Louisiana, and I am extremely confident that I am 100% correct when I say that. And while I hope that justice will restore some peace of mind to the members of this community, I also realize that it's going to take time to recover, both physically and emotionally, from the damage that has been done. But in the words of Psalm 62, God is our fortress, yes, and we will never be shaken. So I would ask that everyone listening to this press conference join me in praying for healing and restoration. Yes. Let's pray for the congregations in this Lenten season. Let's make sure that they all have a place to worship on Palm Sunday and then Easter Sunday. And by the way, let's pray for Mr. Matthews, yes, and his family, that God will create in him, in all of us, but in him at this time, a clean heart, yes, invoking Psalm 51. Yes. So at this point, I'm going to be followed by the Louisiana Fire Marshal, Butch Browning, and then the run of show will run as Ashley indicated previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor, and I want to thank you for your immediate support and concern and direction in this manner. And clearly, this response to this incident was seamless, and all the agencies worked together. I stand before you to tell you that this community is safe again. We are extremely, unequivocally confident that we have the person who is responsible for these tragic crimes on these 3 churches. And I have to tell you, this investigation is probably one of the most unique arson investigations that I've been involved in my 33 years, in that this was an attack on the house of God. This was an attack on not just a place that people go on a weekly interval and worship. It's a place where they've had weddings. It's a place where they've had funerals. It's a place where generations, we're talking about buildings that were over 100 years old, where generations of families have been raised. So though the spirit is still strong, the landmark has been destroyed. We took that very seriously in this investigation, and as you hear about the things that we can talk about, you're going to understand about the passion of the investigators associated with this team. And in the end, you're going to learn that we had some very unique criminal investigators. They were called pastors, and I'll talk about them in the end. As the governor stated, 21-year-old Holden Matthews, who is a resident of Opelousas, has been arrested. He's been charged with state crimes by the State Fire Marshal's Office, Louisiana Revised Statute 1452.1, 3 counts of simple arson on religious buildings. Each one of these charges have a maximum of 15-year penalty. As a quick recap of the case, 3 churches in St. Landry Parish burned in a 10-day span. The St. Mary Baptist Church in Port Barry on March 26, the Greater Union Baptist Church on April 2nd, and finally the Mount Pleasant Baptist Church on April 8th. We can now confirm that all 3 of these fires are intentionally set, and all 3 of these fires are related. Several pieces of evidence, both physical from the scene and technological evidence, have confirmed that Matthews is the suspect. At this time, the investigation is extremely active, and again, as we go through the statements made and questions that we answer, we are very restricted on what we can say, and you're going to understand why. We're still vetting several motives. However, information that the investigators have uncovered is that Matthews had offered, through suggestions and connections, a relationship with a type of music called black metal and its association in history with church burnings in other parts of the world, which have been documented in movies and books. Any question of potential motives are going to go to the federal authorities. There's a lot of discussion about the hate motive. Understand something, that the hate motive is a federal nexus, and the federal authorities are extremely vetting that, and will speak to that. However, what you need to understand is that the investigators sought out a very significant threat in this community. And when Matthews was developed as a suspect, we saw an immediate threat to public safety. We felt that other crimes were imminent. In an abundance of public safety, we quickly secured state warrants and took him into custody. So when we say this investigation is still active, understand that there were extraordinary means taken to bring safety to this community. And again, I will say, the threat is now gone. It's now up to the furthest of the investigation and us bringing to the prosecutors, whether it be state, whether it be federal, to be determined the right information so they can do their job. I have to talk about the work of the investigative team, and as the governor stated, it was an exceptional team. The aforementioned agencies, both from the federal standpoint, from the state, and down to the local, made this case. This case is a textbook example of successful traditional boots-on-the-ground law enforcement, coupled with the science of fire and fire investigation, and finally modern-day technology. That's how this case was solved. It's a very labor-intensive job, but it was expertly executed by many people who knew each other from previous investigations, but also outside investigative agencies who came to the table under the understanding.
All right, you've been listening to an update from Louisiana on those church fires, historically black churches that have been the source of arson over the last couple of weeks. The police there saying that they're all tied together. Let's swing to London now, where we're getting an update on the arrest of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Let's listen.
Organizations and journalists in Europe and elsewhere around the world. This precedent means that any journalist can be extradited for prosecution in the United States for having published truthful information about the United States. I've just been with Mr. Assange in the police cells. He wants to thank all of his supporters for their ongoing support, and he said, "I told you so."
Well, the only thing to add to this is the fact that this is a dark day for journalism. As Jennifer said, this sets a precedent. We don't want this to go forward. This has to be averted. The UK government needs to make a full assurance that a journalist will never be extradited to the United States for publishing activity. This pertains to publishing work 9 years ago, publishing of documents, of videos of the killing of innocent civilians, exposure of war crimes. This is journalism. It's called conspiracy. It's conspiracy to commit journalism. So this has to end, and we urge everybody to support Julian Assange in fighting this extradition. Thank you.
What legal avenues are available to you to prevent his extradition?
We will be contesting and fighting extradition. We've requested that he now gets medical treatment. He's been refused medical treatment for the past 7.5 years, seven years since being inside the embassy. We will be fighting extradition, and he'll be brought before the court again within the next month.
How is he now?
We're not going to be taking any more questions today. Thank you very much.
Health problems?
You were asking about the elements in the extradition request. It is quite obvious that the U.S. authorities have picked just one element of what they have been working on for a long time, including the Espionage Act, acts that have decades in prison. There is no assurance that there will not be additional charges when he is on U.S. soil, and I think and I believe that this was an angle in the approach to increase the likelihood of him being extradited. That is obvious.
Do you have anything to say
Thank
about
you.
the Ecuadorian embassy and the way he was arrested this morning?
Free Assange! Free!
All right, the lawyer there for Julian Assange, Jennifer Robinson, along with WikiLeaks editor Kristen Harpson, saying that they're going to be fighting this extradition. The lawyer for Julian Assange saying this sets a dangerous precedent for all media organizations and journalists around the world. We're going to obviously monitor this story. It is a big story out of the UK. It has implications for the United States as well. But let's swing you back to Louisiana, where officials are updating reporters on those fires at 3 historically black churches in the area. They are all tied together. They do have a suspect in custody.
Women that don't have an opportunity to stand here behind me that worked on this investigation tirelessly. It is a collaborative effort, and you will hear that echo throughout any person that stands here at this podium. We don't stand here today without that joint effort. We don't stand here today announcing this arrest without that support. Like all the agencies behind me, ATF is committed to working with our law enforcement community to identify and arrest any individuals or any group that engages in arson, in particular as it relates to crimes of violence in our houses of worship. We will bring to bear all of our ATF investigative resources and technical experts when we have an investigative effort or situation to occur in the community concerning church fires. We will bring in our certified fire investigators. We will bring in our canine and explosives handlers and our dogs. We will bring in our national response team. We take these crimes seriously. We understand the impact that it can have on a community. We can understand the impact that it has on the church. There is a zero tolerance for this type of crime. And we will work tirelessly, and we have, and it's been demonstrated over the past 10 days, to bring the individual or individuals or groups responsible to justice. Today is a good day.
Yes, it is.
No, today is a great day. Let me rephrase that. Today is a great day. In my career, I have worked more than a few investigations, involving church arsons. And with today's arrest, and I'm going to go a little bit off script because the governor and the Marshal stole some of my thunder here.
You talk better off script from the heart. Talk from the heart.
But with today's arrest, I want to send a strong message to those individuals who wish to continue to engage in this heinous, senseless crime. And I want to say this, that the church is a sacred place. That goes without question. And it is the foundation of our faith. And it is what this country is built on. It is built on a belief in a higher power. That is what guides us. That is what keeps us safe. And that is what gives us comfort. The church is a place that we go to fellowship. It is a place that we go to pray. It is a place that we go to communicate with God. It is a place that we grow up in. It is a place that we are baptized in. It is a place that our family members, when they pass, we go to celebrate their lives and their death. It is a place that when the pressures of life have become too great and it has brought us to our knees, we go to church to look for guidance. We go to church to look for strength. We go to church to address and to deal with our pain and our hurt. And I want to say to the individuals who engage in these types of crimes, you have caused pain and you have caused hurt. But know this, that you cannot destroy our faith.
Amen. That's right.
We can have church anywhere.
That's right.
We can have church in a parking lot. We can have a church in a field. And as many of us know, when we're doing our, building fund, we can have church under a tent.
That's right.
We can have church on a porch. And know this, we'll have church in the very parking lot
That's right.
where the building you destroy
That's right.
will stand as a remembrance to us that God is still with us.
Yes.
You have destroyed a building, but you have not destroyed our faith.
That's right.
We will rebuild these churches. The community will support these churches. The churches will support each other. And your acts of violence, understand this, regardless of your motives, you have only destroyed a building. What you have done is you have brought us together.
Yes.
You have restored our faith in God. You have brought people together that did not know each other before, but that will be binded by the events. So what you have done is this, is you've done nothing but increased our faith, increased the message of God, and we will move forward. So in closing, I will say again this. Thank you to everyone, to all of our investigators, federal, state, and local law enforcement, to the pastors, to the support of the community, to the support of the congregations. And hopefully today's arrest will bring some sense of peace and understanding that hopefully we have put an end to this violent activity. And as I said in my remarks, today is not just a good day, today is a great day.
Yes.
Our federal investigation will continue. We are not done. We are continuing our investigative activities because we want to make sure that any and all individuals, if there are other individuals that have engaged or are involved in this, that they will be brought to justice. So again, as I said, know this, individuals, today you have done nothing more but to restore our faith in God and to bring a community together and to unite us all, which is what this country truly needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah. So I'd now like to bring up the FBI to make comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First and foremost, our thoughts and prayers are with the congregations of St. Mary's Baptist Church, Greater Union Baptist Church, Mount Pleasant Baptist Church, and the community as a whole. A cornerstone of our country is the freedom of religion and the right to practice your faith freely and without intimidation. The teamwork and collaboration has been exemplary, especially with the Louisiana State Fire Marshal's Office, the St. Landry's Parish Sheriff's Office, the ATF, and the State Police, and of course the brave people of this community. The FBI is currently working with our law enforcement partners to determine if this incident was bias motivated. Let me be clear. The FBI New Orleans field office will continue to collaborate and coordinate our efforts with our partners standing here today. These criminal actions will not be tolerated, and we will ensure justice is sought for all victims. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, I get to introduce
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can do it better than I do.
the Sheriff, St. Landry's Parish. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. What a phenomenal team we had here. I mean, it was just, I hope it never happens again in St. Landry Parish, but if it does, y'all coming back. I got to tell you, you're going to come back.
Oh, yes.
First day I met with the Fire Marshal, Butch Browning, and he told me, he said, Sheriff, I got to warn you, these investigators with the ATF response teams don't play. I said, don't play? He said, they don't play. They quit school because of recess. He said, they're serious about their job. I said, wow. To me, priority one in this investigation for me, and I understood what my role was to get the community together. The Fire Marshal and I got together with the pastors and let them know that we had this. That we were going to do everything in our power, get all the resources that we could together and catch this individual. And I made a promise that day. I said, we're going to arrest him. Didn't I tell you that?
Yes, you did.
I said, we're going to arrest him. And an arrest was made, and I'm going to make some points in a minute about how that happened. But my goal and my job was to ensure the safety of other churches in the rural areas of the parish. I think we have like 150 plus, maybe 170 other churches in St. Landry Parish, in the rural areas of the parish. And we attempted to identify the most vulnerable churches, those in the areas that could possibly be set fire again. I dedicated overtime. I called my chief financial officer and said, do what it takes, the patrol supervisor, do what it takes, assign guys out there, make sure that we're out and patrolling, and I want deputies guarding these churches. The State Fire Marshal, Butch Browning, and I met daily to discuss options and directions. We called in the FBI, we called in the National ATF Fire Response Team, the Louisiana State Police, the local Fire District 3, and of course we provided investigators from our office. We met with the local pastors, as I mentioned, and they gave us some ideas, we gave them some suggestions, and we worked together. Everybody worked as a team. And I see where some media outlets prematurely reported that the suspect, Holden Matthews' father, turned him in. Now let me correct that. That is not, let me repeat, that is not true. Holden Matthews' father did not turn him in. We did not get any tips from the hotline. We got a lot of tips from the public, and we investigated those tips and leads. But this case was not solved with tips from the public, but many came in. This case was solved because of the men and women that were assigned were competent and driven to make an arrest. This case was solved because of the boots on the ground and the butts in the air. They didn't stop. Because of Holden's father or anyone else turning him in, it didn't happen. And as we all know by now, Holden's father is an employee of mine, a fine man. He was shocked and hurt, as any father would be. Yes. And my heart went out to him yesterday when we notified him to come in. And I talked to him, and the news was broke to him. He was in terrible shape. This investigative team was successful because of the 1,000 hours of teamwork, the dedicated manpower, at our disposal. And this, again, team was phenomenal. I set them up across the street in this new building, and when I walk in the morning to see what I could do, I was in the way. I got out of the way. Whatever they needed, they got. Many hours of drone activity. A lot of equipment and resources was made available to us. And basic, old-fashioned detective work. You cannot solve a case unless you do good, basic, old-fashioned detective work. And in closing, I want to say I speak on behalf of St. Landry Parish citizens in thanking Governor John Bell Edwards for providing us, the State Fire Marshal Services, the expertise, the Fire Marshal Butch Browning for his leadership and guidance, Colonel Kevin Reeves of the Louisiana State Police for his assistance in providing manpower, the ATF, the FBI, and all others that helped us. We could not have done it alone. It was teamwork. And I say thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Sheriff.
All right, you've been listening to an update from officials in Louisiana on those 3 historically black churches that were all victims of arson. And so they do have a suspect in custody. They believe that he is connected to those 3 fires. We'll continue to follow this story. Meanwhile, the Justice Department and the IRS will announce today that Michael Avenatti is facing a new 36-count grand jury indictment. The attorney, known for representing actress Stormy Daniels in lawsuits against Donald Trump, is being indicted on charges including fraud, perjury, embezzlement, and other financial crimes. He faces up to 335 years in prison if convicted. Avenatti, who is out of jail on bond for separate federal charges, tweeted this morning that he does not agree with the new charges and he plans to plead not guilty. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, a lot more news around. Stick around. We'll be right back.